Hello, this is my Project 1 assignment revision. In the Project 1 assignment, I was given feedback by both my colleagues and my professor on various different proofreading and structural paragraph outlining that could enhance my overall presentation of the project. So, to start with this project, I chose images that were about women in a strong and appealing setting. So, to start with this basic image, we have a woman who seems like she's confident, looking at the camera, makes her own decisions, lives lives by the way she does things, and doesn't take answers from anyone. I chose this image specifically because when you analyze the text by Jamacia Kincaid, you see a girl being taught by her mother how to live in society. And at some point, as a young female grows up, she has to make decisions for herself. And this image, I believe, portrayed the best overall outlook of how that child would have grown up, taking into account life factors, taking into account what she learned from her mom, and who she wants to be as an individual. Moving on from that, I tried not to make the template too busy. I wanted the images on one side with the text on the other side, with the images not taking away from the importance of the text. In this specific page, I wrote, I proofread and went through the little minor errors as far as commas, quotations, sentence structure, and etc., just to make sure that everything read well and my audience had the same viewpoint that I wanted them to understand. And this, I tried to make the font and the font size big enough so that it was legible to read on all platforms, whether you were reading it on a computer or whether you were reading it on a phone. That chose to be a little bit difficult, but other than that, the text was the same as the last overall prompt, which was just basic editing, proofreading, sentence structure, um, and making sure that the overall project met the requirements. For Project 1, I was scored pretty well, so I didn't feel like there was anything I needed to specifically change about the project. I felt like my opinions weren't over overbearing in the text and that they were really back. While I did have my perspective on the issue, a lot of my perspective was backed by quotes used by credible sources that really just brought together my project. So rather than it being an opinion paper, it was more of a here's one way of looking at the text, here's another way of looking at the text, and neither way is wrong, but this is the way that the text was written by Jamacia, and in this current era, this is the reason why there's such discrepancies in interpretation of the text. Moving on to Project 2, there were some major revisions that I did to Project 2. In Project 2, I changed the entire layout of the Google Sites document. The reason I changed the entire layout is because the first layout was just bland. It had a Black Lives Matter red fist for all the pages, and that was it. It was a black background with a red fist on all the pages. For me, I kind of felt like there could be something that was a little more interactive and something a little more engaging, and I wanted to send a message that wasn't just the same image over and over again. So I recreated a completely new document, tossed the old one to the side, and made it a lot more interactive. So in this bottom section, in this top section, we have an introduction to the paragraph to the project. In the bottom section, we have a little more information on the project. So it's more set up like a website. If you were to click on this project, you would see it set up in a more engaging fashion. Specifically to the mission of the project, this was my introduction. And in my introduction, I wrote the thesis statement and the issue that I was discussing as a Black Lives Matter issue, which unfortunately for me, Black Lives Matter isn't a specific issue. It is a group of people who are talking about and informing others on a variety of different issues. So I needed to narrow down what specific issue that I wanted to talk about in this project that the Black Lives Matter covered. So instead of restructuring all of my paragraphs, I changed a few sentences in my thesis to overarch what the entire purpose of the project was. And in changing that, we can see that right here, the unlawful persecution of any ethnicity is intolerable and needs to occur, and change needs to occur globally for societal ethics to improve. What I wanted to talk about in this project was that if society doesn't change its ethical viewpoints on the treatment of human beings, that we will never make progress to change what's going on currently in the environment. And I felt like that was a big enough, broad enough topic to incorporate various things that are going on in the media, with the police, with what African Americans are occurring in their lives. And it was just something that hit home for a lot of people, because ethics is something that you're not going to change somebody's opinions or their views on. So unless you understand where somebody else is coming from, it's hard to see another person's perspective. And in this project, I felt like it was important to write about both sides. I felt like I knew enough about what I felt about Black Lives Matter. That was more than obvious for the majority of the population. I believe that human beings don't want anybody to be hurt or treated unequally. I just feel like there's things that have happened in human history that have created these outputs, and unless you are African American, you don't see the same reality as everybody else. So to start, I bring up the feelings and understanding and perspective of what it's like to somewhat be an African American. Then in the contrary side, I talk about what it's like to be somebody who's not African American, somebody who's possibly scared of somebody who's black and walking down the street, because their opinion on the issue matters as well. I don't know what it feels like to be a person of a different minority group, to be fearful of somebody because you have no idea how they're going to act. I changed up the image here in the Impossible War, HI versus AI, which means human intelligence versus artificial intelligence, because there's human intelligence, which we all are adapt, and this is what we know, and we're so limited to as much information as we can take in. For artificial intelligence is a perspective of consistently improving as new information comes in. And I feel like that was an important picture to add, because I feel like humans need to be more like artificial intelligence. We need to take in the information that we learn and adapt it and grow with it. And as humans, we don't really adapt and grow to the things that we learn because we're stubborn in our ways. This was just a funny picture that I threw into the text. Of course, there was some editing, proofreading, and stuff that happened with the structure and the layout. I rearranged some paragraphs so that it flowed easier. I rearranged some sentences so that it read more fluently and consistently with the overarching quotes and quotation sandwiches that I used. And just throwing in what I felt were very necessary pieces. I ended with the Black Lives Matter fist that I used for the other template. because I still felt like the message that the image sent was important, and I didn't want to lose that quality of work. That is the summarization of the revisions that I've made to my project 2. Thank you very much for your time and consideration. It is greatly appreciated.